16-year-old Jasmine sets up a charity lemonade stand. Police Chief Callahan, driven by bias, arrests her. Her dad, a government agent, rushes to help. How will they overcome this blatant injustice? And what chaos will erupt in the community as a result? Hey everyone, welcome to Worldly Whispers. Let's get started. 16-year-old Jasmine Carter is a remarkable student at Oakwood High School, standing in stark contrast to her peers. While the hallways of the school are filled with the excited chatter of classmates discussing the latest TikTok trends, weekend parties, or their favorite sports teams, Jasmine's mind is occupied by far more profound and altruistic thoughts. Her deep, set, intelligent eyes seem to look beyond the immediate surroundings, fixated on a future where she can make a tangible difference in the world. Jasmine's dream of becoming a doctor is not a fleeting fancy. It is a calling that has taken root within her, nurtured by a series of experiences and a natural inclination towards helping others. She often imagines herself in far-flung corners of the globe, in clinics where children suffering from preventable diseases wait for treatment. The image of their innocent faces, filled with pain and hope, fuels her determination. Equally, she envisions herself in local hospitals, providing compassionate care to the elderly, listening to their stories, and easing their physical and emotional burdens. The thought of families torn asunder by health crises they cannot afford to address weighs heavily on her heart, driving her forward with an unwavering resolve. As the final school bell rings, signaling the end of another bustling day of learning, Jasmine shoulders her backpack, which is heavy not only with textbooks on anatomy and biology, but also with the weight of her aspirations. She steps out of the school building with a purposeful gait, her stride exuding confidence and determination. The cacophony of students' voices around her, the excited squeals about shopping sprees at the mall, the animated discussions about basketball practice, and the laughter at the latest viral videos, only serves to highlight the disconnect between her and her classmates. On her way home, Jasmine's mind is already focused on her upcoming project, a lemonade stand. This is not just a typical school-related activity for her. It represents her first real foray into the world of making a positive impact. She sees it as a stepping stone, a small but significant start on her long journey towards achieving her dream. The idea of using the proceeds from the lemonade stand to help those in need has been germinating in her mind for some time, and now, she is finally ready to put her plan into action. As she walks, Jasmine passes by the community center. The center, with its faded sign and peeling paint, may not present an imposing exterior, but it is a place that pulsates with life. The sounds of children's laughter and the thump of basketballs drift through the open windows, creating a warm and inviting atmosphere. Jasmine is immediately drawn to it, as if by an invisible force. She decides to stop in, driven by a sense of nostalgia and a desire to reconnect with a place that has been the site of many of her volunteering efforts. Inside the community center, she is greeted by Ms. Thompson, the center's dedicated and tireless director. Ms. Thompson's face lights up with a warm smile when she sees Jasmine. "Jasmine, what a pleasant surprise. How are you, dear?" she asks, her voice filled with genuine affection. Jasmine approaches the front desk, a broad smile on her own face. "I'm good, Ms. Thompson. Just wanted to check in and see how everything's going," she replies. Ms. Thompson's expression turns slightly solemn as she shares the center's ongoing struggles. "Oh, same old problems. The roof in the art room is still leaking, and we're short on volunteers for the summer reading program. But the kids, they're as resilient as ever," she says, her eyes crinkling with a mixture of pride and worry. Jasmine listens intently, her heart going out to the center and the children it serves. Without a moment's hesitation, she says, "Miss Thompson, I've been thinking. I'm setting up a lemonade stand for a school project, and I want all the proceeds to go to the center. Maybe we can use the money to fix that roof or get some new books for the reading program." Miss Thompson's eyes well up with tears of gratitude. "Oh, Jasmine, you're truly one of a kind. Any amount would be a blessing," she says, her voice choked with emotion. Jasmine feels a sense of fulfillment wash over her, knowing that her little project could make a real difference to the community center and the children who rely on it gives her an even greater sense of purpose. Leaving the community center, Jasmine's thoughts turn to her friend Lena. She knows that Lena's family is facing difficult times. Lena's father has been out of work for a while, and her mother is constantly working extra shifts at the diner to make ends meet. Concerned about her friend, Jasmine decides to pay Lena a visit. As she approaches Lena's house, the dilapidated state of the property is evident. The peeling yellow paint and overgrown lawn tell a story of the family struggles. Jasmine's heart aches as she knocks on the door. After a moment, Lena opens the door, her eyes tired but brightening slightly at the sight of Jasmine. "Hey Jay, didn't expect to see you today," Lena says. Jasmine smiles warmly. "Just wanted to check in. How are you holding up?" she asks. Lena shrugs, stepping out onto the porch and closing the door behind her. Same old, same old. Dad's still out of work, and Mom's picking up extra shifts at the diner. I'm thinking of dropping out to help more at home, she says, her voice laced with resignation. Jasmine is shocked and saddened by Lena's words. She knows how much Lena has struggled in school, but the thought of her friend giving up on her education is unbearable. "Lena, I know things are tough, but you can't give up," Jasmine says softly, placing a hand on her friend's shoulder. "You're smart and capable. You just need to believe in yourself." Lena scoffs, but there is no real bite to her response. "Easy for you to say, Miss Straight. Not all of us are cut out for the whole school thing," she says. Jasmine shakes her head firmly. "It's not about being cut out for it. It's about perseverance. You just have to start small and believe that things can change." As she speaks, an idea pops into Jasmine's head. "Hey, why don't you help me with my lemonade stand this weekend? It's for charity, and I could really use an extra pair of hands," she suggests. Lena hesitates for a moment, then shakes her head. "Sorry, Jay. I'd love to, but I'm busy this weekend. Mom needs help with some extra shifts at the diner. Maybe next time," she says. Jasmine tries to hide her disappointment. "No worries. I understand. Take care, okay?" she says, giving Lena a quick hug before turning to leave. As Jasmine continues her walk home, she feels a mix of emotions. Her lemonade stand project has taken on an even greater significance, not only as a means to help the community center, but also as a symbol of hope for herself and others. She is determined to make it a success, despite the setbacks. Little does she know that this simple act of setting up a lemonade stand will soon become the catalyst for a series of events that will change her life and the lives of those around her in ways she never could have imagined. In the town of Millbrook, Police Chief Callahan climbed into his patrol car with a perpetual frown on his weather-beaten face. The once familiar streets now seemed alien to him, altered by an influx of new residents and shifting demographics. As he pulled away from the station, he couldn't shake the feeling of being a relic from a bygone era. Beside him, Officer Malcolm Green, nearly 2 decades Callahan's junior, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The generational gap between them was palpable. Green tried to offer a positive perspective, stating that crime rates had been down this quarter. However, Callahan scoffed, dismissing the numbers as not telling the whole story. They were out on patrol as part of the mayor's new community engagement initiative, a task Callahan clearly resented. He grumbled about how his old-fashioned methods of writing tickets and keeping the peace were no longer considered sufficient. Now, he felt they were expected to be social workers and public relations agents as well. Suddenly, the radio crackled to life with a report of a car break in on Maple Street. An elderly woman had called in, claiming to have seen a young black man using something to jimmy the lock of her neighbor's car. Callahan's face darkened, and he muttered about how these other kinds of people always cause trouble. Upon arriving at the scene, Callahan approached the elderly woman, Mrs. Thompson, with a veneer of gentleness that surprised Green. She described the suspect as a young black man in a hoodie. Callahan nodded, seemingly unsurprised, and sent Green to check the car for evidence. As Green walked away, Callahan continued to voice his disdain for the changing neighborhood to Mrs. Thompson, who looked increasingly uncomfortable. Back in the patrol car, Callahan resumed his rant about the new residents, while Green remained silent, his discomfort evident. Green's phone buzzed with a message from his wife, Sarah, asking if everything was okay at work. He replied with a lie, saying it was just a busy day, feeling the weight of the job and the internal conflict between his conscience and his duty. As they continued their patrol, Green caught sight of his reflection in the side mirror. He looked older and more careworn than he remembered. He wondered how long he could keep up this charade, torn between the officer he wanted to be and the realities of a system that often seemed resistant to change. Just then, their attention was drawn to a commotion. Jasmine Carter's lemonade stand had caught the eye of a group of white boys from the football team. They sneered at Jasmine, mocking her efforts to raise money for disabled children. Jasmine, however, stood her ground, just as her father had taught her. She politely but firmly responded to their taunts, which left the boys taken aback, and eventually they moved on. Jasmine then called her father, Marcus, to share her small victory. Marcus was proud of her for standing up for herself, but he also warned her to be careful, as some people might not understand her noble cause and could give her a hard time. Shortly after, Dr. Elena Simmons, a retired physician who had inspired Jasmine, stopped by the lemonade stand. She praised Jasmine's initiative and shared words of encouragement, telling her that she had the qualities to become a great doctor. Their conversation was interrupted by the screech of tires as Chief Callahan's police cruiser pulled up. Callahan stepped out, scowling, and demanded to know what was going on. Jasmine explained that she was selling lemonade for charity. Callahan immediately asked for a permit, something Jasmine didn't know she needed. He then threatened to shut down the stand, claiming potential health and licensing violations. Officer Green tried to intervene, suggesting they handle the situation more carefully, but Callahan was having none of it. In a swift and unjust move, Callahan grabbed Jasmine's arm, spun her around, and slapped handcuffs on her wrists. The onlookers were shocked, and a small crowd began to gather, murmuring in disbelief. Jasmine, in shock and pain, remembered her father's words to stay calm. But as she was being led to the patrol car, she couldn't help but feel a sense of injustice. Jasmine sat in the cold, uncomfortable back seat of the patrol car, the plastic seat digging into her. The metal handcuffs bit into her wrists, a painful reminder of the injustice she was facing. Outside, the crowd's angry murmurs filled the air. She could see Officer Green and Chief Callahan engaged in a heated argument, though she couldn't make out their words. Green was trying his best to reason with Callahan. "Chief, this is unnecessary. She's just a kid, and all she's doing is running a lemonade stand for charity," he said, his voice tense with urgency. But Callahan was furious, his face red with anger. "This is about upholding the law, Green. She doesn't have a permit, and we can't let this kind of thing slide," he retorted, his voice booming. Inside the car, Jasmine was terrified but determined not to show it. She thought of her father, Marcus, and his words of advice. She knew she had to stay strong. Suddenly, she saw Mrs. Johnson, a neighbor who had earlier bought lemonade from her, pushing through the crowd. "Jasmine, honey, do you want me to call your father?" Mrs. Johnson asked. Jasmine nodded vigorously, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes, please. Tell him I need him." As Mrs. Johnson made the call, Green reached his breaking point. He couldn't stand by and watch this injustice unfold. "Chief, I can't be a part of this. What we're doing to this girl is wrong," he said firmly, his eyes locked on Callahan's. Callahan was taken aback by Green's defiance. "You're questioning my authority, Green? You'll regret this," he shouted. But Green was resolute. He walked over to the patrol car and opened the back door. He gently began to uncuff Jasmine, ignoring Callahan's angry protests. "You're not in trouble, Jasmine. You can go," he said softly. Jasmine looked up at him, her eyes filled with a mix of relief and gratitude. "Can I call my dad now?" she asked. Green hesitated for a moment, then nodded. He handed her his personal cell phone. "Make it quick," he said. Jasmine's fingers trembled as she dialed her father's number. It rang several times before Marcus picked up. "Hello, who is this?" he asked, his voice sounding tense. "Dad, it's me, Jasmine. I'm in trouble. I'm at the lemonade stand, and the police are arresting me," Jasmine said, her voice cracking. Marcus's tone immediately changed from confusion to concern. "Jasmine, what happened? Stay calm. I'm on my way," he said, his voice firm. As Jasmine ended the call, Chief Callahan stormed over. "Green, what the hell do you think you're doing? That girl is under arrest," he bellowed. Green stood his ground. "No, Chief. She's done nothing wrong. I won't let you abuse your power like this," he replied, his voice steady. The two officers stared at each other, the tension between them palpable. Meanwhile, Marcus was speeding through the streets of Millbrook, his mind focused on one thing: getting to Jasmine. He was a government agent, And though he usually kept a cool head in difficult situations, this was different. This was his daughter in trouble. Memories of Jasmine's childhood flashed through his mind. Her first steps, her first day of school. He couldn't let anything happen to her. When Marcus arrived at the scene, he saw the chaos. The crowd had grown larger, and there was a sense of unrest in the air. He quickly assessed the situation and made his way towards the patrol car. As he got closer, he heard Callahan shouting at Green. "You're finished, Green. I'll see to it that you lose your job," Callahan was saying. Marcus stepped between them. "Gentlemen, I believe there's been a misunderstanding. I'm Jasmine Carter's father, and I'd like to know why my daughter is being treated like a criminal for running a lemonade stand," he said, his voice calm but authoritative. Callahan turned to Marcus, his eyes narrowing. "This is police business, sir. You need to step back," he said. But Marcus didn't budge. He looked at Green. "Officer, could you please let my daughter out of the car?" he asked. Green nodded and opened the car door. Jasmine rushed out and into her father's arms. "Dad, I'm sorry," she said, her voice shaking. Marcus hugged her tightly. "You didn't do anything wrong, baby," he said softly. He then turned to Callahan. "Chief, I think it's time we had a serious discussion about what's going on here. Arresting a child for selling lemonade is an overreach of your authority," Marcus said. Callahan's face reddened. "She was operating without a permit, and there are health and safety issues to consider," he replied, trying to justify his actions. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "A lemonade stand requires a permit? And since when does selling lemonade for charity pose a health and safety risk? I think there's more to this than meets the eye," he said, his voice carrying a hint of suspicion. The crowd, which had been watching the exchange intently, began to murmur in agreement. As the tension between Marcus and Callahan continued to rise, everyone waited to see what would happen next. The small incident of a lemonade stand had now turned into a major confrontation, and its outcome would have far-reaching consequences for the community. The standoff between Marcus and Chief Callahan continued, with the crowd watching intently. Callahan, still fuming, tried to regain control of the situation. "You have no right to interfere, Mr. Carter. This is a police matter," he barked, his face flushed with anger. Marcus, however, remained calm and composed, his eyes steady as he looked at Callahan. "Chief, I'm not interfering. I'm simply asking for an explanation as to why my daughter, a minor, is being handcuffed for running a lemonade stand," he replied firmly. The tension in the air was palpable, and the onlookers began to murmur among themselves. Some were sympathetic to Jasmine, appalled at the sight of a young girl being treated so harshly. Others were uncertain, caught between the authority of the police and the father's plea for justice. Officer Green, who had been standing by, felt a sense of relief that Marcus had arrived. He knew that Marcus could potentially put an end to this unjust situation. Callahan, realizing that the situation was slipping out of his control, became more aggressive. "I'm warning you, Mr. Carter. Step back, or you'll be in trouble too," he threatened, his hand hovering near his holster. Marcus did not flinch. Instead, he took a deep breath and reached into his jacket. The crowd gasped, thinking he might be reaching for a weapon. But what Marcus pulled out was a badge, an FBI badge. "Chief Callahan, I'm Special Agent Marcus Carter of the Federal Bureau of Investigation," Marcus announced, his voice clear and commanding. "And I believe you've just made a serious mistake." The revelation sent shockwaves through the crowd. There was a moment of stunned silence, followed by a burst of excited whispers. Callahan's face turned pale as the realization of what he had done sank in. He stumbled backward, his bravado disappearing. Officer Green couldn't hide his surprise and a sense of vindication. He had always suspected that there was something more to Marcus, but he never expected this. "Agent Carter, I want you to know that I tried to stop this from happening. I knew it was wrong," Green said, stepping forward. Marcus nodded at him. "Your actions will be noted, Officer Green," he replied. Callahan, trying to salvage the situation, stammered, But this doesn't change anything. She was still operating without a permit." Marcus's eyes hardened. "Chief, you've not only violated my daughter's civil rights, but also engaged in racial profiling and abuse of power. Every word you say from now on will be part of my report to the Bureau, the mayor's office, and potentially a federal court," he said sternly. The crowd, now fully aware of the gravity of the situation, began to demand justice. Phones were held up, recording every moment of the encounter. Marcus turned to address the onlookers. Ladies and gentlemen, I understand your concerns. This matter will be thoroughly investigated. For now, I ask that you disperse and let us handle this situation, he said, his voice carrying a sense of authority. Slowly, the crowd began to thin out, though many lingered, still in shock at what they had witnessed. Marcus then turned his attention back to Callahan and Green. Officer Green, I want you to take the chief back to the station. Inform the desk sergeant that Chief Callahan is to be placed on immediate administrative leave pending a full investigation, he ordered. Green nodded, his expression serious. Yes, sir, he replied. Callahan, now a broken man, offered no resistance as he was led away. Marcus finally allowed himself to relax a bit. He turned to Jasmine, who was looking at him with a mix of relief and shock. Dad, I'm sorry, Jasmine said, her voice soft. Marcus pulled her into a hug. It's not your fault, sweetheart. You did nothing wrong, he said, his voice filled with love and reassurance. In the days that followed, the small town of Millbrook was in an uproar. The video of Jasmine's arrest and the revelation of Marcus's FBI identity went viral, sparking national discussions about racial profiling and police overreach. The local police department came under intense scrutiny. The mayor, facing public pressure, accepted Chief Callahan's resignation within 48 hours. A full federal investigation was launched into the Millbrook Police Department, uncovering a history of discriminatory practices and procedural violations. Officer Green, hailed as a hero for his attempts to de-escalate the situation, was promoted to a leadership position. He was determined to help rebuild trust between the police and the community. Jasmine, despite the trauma of the experience, found herself at the center of a movement. Her lemonade stand became a symbol of resistance against injustice. She received numerous interview requests and support from civil rights organizations. With the help of her father and the community, she organized a town-wide lemonade stand fundraiser, which raised a significant amount of money for local charities. Marcus, on the other hand, faced his own challenges. His cover as an ordinary local father was blown. After discussions with his superiors, he decided to transfer to a desk job at the local FBI field office. Although it meant less excitement and more paperwork, it allowed him to be there for Jasmine without the constant worry of his undercover status being compromised. The neighborhood's reaction to Marcus's true identity was mixed. Some were in awe of his role in uncovering police corruption, while others felt betrayed by the secrecy. However, as time passed, most came to understand the necessity of his discretion and appreciated the sacrifices he had made. In the weeks following the lemonade stand incident, life in Millbrook gradually started to find new rhythm. The once tense atmosphere in the community began to ease, replaced by a sense of cautious optimism. The town, which had been thrust into the national spotlight, was now at a crossroads, with the opportunity to redefine itself and its relationship with law enforcement. The Millbrook Police Department, under new leadership, was undergoing a massive transformation. The federal investigation had exposed deep-seated issues of discrimination and procedural violations. In response, a series of reforms were implemented. Sensitivity training became mandatory for all officers, aiming to address unconscious biases and improve interactions with the community. Community outreach programs were also launched, with the goal of rebuilding trust between the police and the people they served. Officer Green, now in a leadership position, was at the forefront of these changes. He was determined to make the department a force for good, using his experience from the lemonade stand incident as a guiding light. Jasmine, too, was on a new path. Inspired by her experience, she threw herself into her studies with even greater enthusiasm. Her dream of becoming a doctor was now intertwined with a passion for social justice. She started planning a youth advocacy group at her high school, encouraging her peers to get involved in local issues and make their voices heard. Through this group, she hoped to empower young people and create a more inclusive and just community. The town-wide lemonade stand fundraiser, which Jasmine had organized, had been a huge success. It not only raised a significant amount of money for local charities, but also brought the community together. People from all walks of life had come out to support the event, symbolizing a new era of unity and cooperation. The money raised was used to address some of the long-standing issues in the community, such as improving facilities at the community center and providing resources for underprivileged families. Marcus, in his new desk job at the local FBI field office, found a new sense of balance. Although he missed the excitement of his previous undercover work, he was grateful for the opportunity to be more present in Jasmine's life. He also took an active role in the community, using his knowledge and experience to help with the ongoing reforms in the police department. The neighborhood, over time, had come to accept and appreciate Marcus for who he was. The initial shock and mixed reactions to his true identity had given way to respect and understanding. One day, a few weeks after the fundraiser, Jasmine once again set up a lemonade stand on her front lawn. This time, she was not alone. Lena, her friend who had previously been struggling, stood beside her with a new, found confidence. Officer Green, off duty and in civilian clothes, was chatting with neighbors as he helped pour lemonade. Marcus watched from a distance, a proud smile on his face. The lemonade stand, which had once been the center of a storm, now represented hope and renewal. Dr. Elena Simmons, the retired physician who had inspired Jasmine, stopped by. She looked at the scene with a sense of pride. "Jasmine, my dear, I've been watching the changes you brought about. You've shown remarkable strength and resilience," she said. Jasmine smiled, feeling a sense of gratitude. "Dr. Simmons, your words that day gave me the courage to keep going." "Thank you," she replied. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the scene, Jasmine looked around at the people gathered. She realized that her simple act of setting up a lemonade stand had led to something much bigger. It had become a catalyst for change, a symbol of the power of standing up for what was right. The road ahead would undoubtedly have its challenges, but as she saw the unity and hope in the community, she knew that they were on the right track. The lemonade stand incident had changed their lives forever, but it had also opened the door to a future filled with possibility. It served as a reminder that even the smallest actions could have far-reaching consequences, and that, together, the community could overcome any obstacle.
If this story touched you, show your support by liking and subscribing. Your encouragement helps us keep sharing memorable stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.